Hello students. Today we will discuss NCERT section 13.5, 13.6 and example 13.3 of chapter nuclei. This is the disclaimer. Today we are focusing on nuclei and what happens during radioactive decay. By the end of this lecture, you will have a clear understanding of the different types of decay and how they affect atomic nuclei. First, you will be able to learn to identify and distinguish between the three main types of radioactive decay: alpha, beta, and gamma decay. For each type, we will write out the nuclear equations using plain symbols and arrows. Next, you will be able to understand how each decay process affects the atomic number and mass number of the nucleus. We will also practice recognizing which particles are emitted in each case. Let's move on to the details of each decay process. Let's see the index of topics that we are going to cover today. We will start by looking at example 13.3 from the chapter on nuclei. This example will help us understand some of the fundamental ideas about atomic nuclei. Next, we will talk about section 13.5, which is all about the nuclear force. Next, we move to the section 13.6, which introduces radioactivity. Radioactivity is the process by which unstable nuclei release energy by emitting particles or radiation. We will look at the examples of radioactive decay and discuss how to calculate the energy released. Let's examine what this question is asking. It wants us to find the energy equivalent of one atomic mass unit, often written as 1 U or 1 AMU, first in joules and then in mega electron volts. This question is about the relationship between the mass and energy, which is described by Einstein's famous equation equal to mc square. Here E is energy, m is mass, and c is speed of light. Notice how the question then asks us to use this energy equivalent to express the mass defect of an oxygen-16 nucleus in units of mega electron volt per c square. The mass defect is the difference between the mass of the separated nucleons and the actual mass of the nucleus. So what is given? So for oxygen-16 atom, atomic number Z equals to 8 and mass number A equals to 16. Here we are given the speed of light c, which is 2.9979248 times 10 to the power 8 meter per second. Now let's look at the formula for mass defect. Delta M equals the sum of the masses of all protons and neutrons minus the actual measured mass of the nucleus. In this formula, Z is number of protons, MP is the number of Z is the number of protons, M is the mass of the protons, A minus Z is the number of neutrons, Mn is the mass of neutron, and M is the experimental mass of the nucleus. This difference, delta M, represents the mass converted into binding energy. First, let's note down the important values we need. The mass of proton is 1.00727 atomic mass units. The mass of the neutron is 1.00866 atomic mass units, and the experimentally measured mass of an oxygen-16 nucleus is 15.99053 atomic mass units. Now let's write the formula for mass defect. Delta M, or the mass defect, is equal to sum of masses of all protons and neutrons in the nucleus minus the actual mass of the nucleus. Here Z is the number of protons, A is the mass number, and M is the measured mass of the nucleus. So Z is the number of protons multiplied by mass of protons, plus A minus Z is the number of neutrons multiplied by the mass of neutron. And collectively this term represents the mass of all the nucleons minus the capital M, that is the actual experimental mass of the nucleus. Let's substitute the values for oxygen-16. So oxygen-16 has 8 protons and 8 neutrons. So we multiply the mass of proton by 8, add it to the mass of neutron times 8, and then subtract the measured mass of the nucleus. that is 15.99053. Now let's do the arithmetic. 8 times the proton mass gives 8.05816 and 8 times the neutron mass gives 8.06928. Adding these together and subtracting the measured mass 15.99053 gives us the mass defect. After calculating, we find that the mass defect for oxygen 16 is 0.13691 atomic mass units. This value tells us how much mass has been converted into binding energy to hold the nucleus together. So the mass defect of oxygen 16 is 0.13691 atomic mass units. This is the difference between the total mass of the separate nucleons and the actual mass of the nucleus. We will use this value in the next steps to find the energy equivalent. Now let's recall the conversion factor. One atomic mass unit is equal to 1.6605 times 10 to the power minus 27 kilograms. This allows us to convert the mass defect from atomic mass units to kilograms. To start, let's see the famous equation E equal to mc square. Here is energy, m is mass, and c is speed of light. We are plugging in the mass of one atomic mass unit, which is 1.6605 times 10 to the power of minus 27 kilograms, and the speed of light, which is 2.9979 times 10 to the power 8 meter per second. This calculation will give us the energy equivalent in joules. After performing the calculations, we find that energy equivalent of one atomic mass unit is 1.4924 times 10 to the power minus 10 joules. Now let's recall the relationship between the electron volts and joules. 1 electron volt is equal to 1.602 times 10 to the power minus 19 joules. This conversion is important because nuclear energies are often expressed in electron volts, especially in mega electron volts. Next, we will convert our answer from joules to electron volts. To do this, we divide the energy in joules by the value of 1 electron volt in joules. So we take 1.4924 times 10 to the power minus 10 joules and divide by 1.602 times 10 to the power minus 9. This will give us the energy in electron volts. So carrying out the division, we get 0.9315 times 10 to the power 9 electron volts. That's the same as 931.5 million electron volts or 931.5 mega electron volts. This is the standard energy equivalent for one atomic mass unit. So the energy equivalent of one atomic mass unit is 931.5 mega electron volt. This is the key conversion factor when dealing with the nuclear reactions and mass defects. Now let's focus on converting energy from joules to mega electron volt, which stands for mega electron volts. This is a common unit of energy in nuclear physics. Here we see that one atomic mass unit is equivalent to 931.5 mega electron volt divided by c squared. The U stands for unified atomic mass unit, which is a standard unit for atomic and nuclear masses. Now let's look at the mass defect for oxygen 16. The mass defect is given as 0.13691 U. This means the actual mass of oxygen 16 nucleus is 0.13691 atomic mass units, less than the total mass of its separate protons and neutrons. This missing mass has been converted into binding energy, which keeps the nucleus stable. To find the energy equivalent of this mass defect, we multiplied the mass defect by the conversion factor we discussed earlier. So delta M equals 0.13691 times 931.5 mega electron volt per c square. This calculation gives us the binding energy in mega electron volts. After doing the multiplication, we find that mass defect for oxygen 16 is 127.5 mega electron volt per c squared. This is the total binding energy for the nucleus. So the energy needed to separate an oxygen 16 nucleus into its individual protons and neutrons is 127.5 mega electron volt per c squared. Now our objective is to understand the concept of nuclear force. This is a fundamental topic in nuclear physics as it explains how the nucleus of an atom stays together despite the repulsion between positively charged protons. Now let's define nuclear force. The nuclear force is the force that binds proton and neutrons together inside the nucleus. Even though protons repel each other due to their positive charges, this force is strong enough to hold them, along with neutrons tightly packed in the nucleus. Next, let's look at some important properties of the nuclear force. Understanding these properties will help us see why the nucleus is stable and how nuclear reactions occur. First, notice that nuclear force is the strongest of all the fundamental forces in nature. It's over 100 times stronger than the electrostatic force, but only at very short distances. This incredible strength is what keeps the nucleus from flying apart, even though the protons are trying to push away from each other. However, the nuclear force only acts over a very short range, just a few femtometers, which is about 10 raised to power minus 15 meters. To give you an idea, that's much smaller than the size of an atom. If the distance between the nucleons increases beyond this range, the nuclear force quickly becomes negligible. You can see in this figure how the nuclear force drops off rapidly as distances increases. Beyond a few femtometers, the force is almost zero. This short range is why only nucleons that are close together in the nucleus feel this strong attraction. Another key property is that the nuclear force is charge independent. This means the force between two protons, two neutrons, or a proton and a neutron is almost the same once we account for the repulsion between protons. This property helps explain why both protons and neutrons can be bound together in the nucleus. Let's start by looking at the properties of nuclear force. One important property is called the saturation property. This means that each nucleon, what is either a proton or a neutron, only interacts strongly with its immediate neighbors in the nucleus, not with every nucleon. This is different from forces like gravity or electric force, which act over much longer distances. Notice in the diagram how a nucleon is only interacting with the nucleons right next to it. This local interaction is what we call the saturation property. Because of this, the nuclear force doesn't keep increasing as we add more nucleons. Instead, each nucleon only feels a few neighbors. As a result of this saturation property, the binding energy per nucleon, which we write as EBN, stays roughly constant for most nuclei, especially those in the middle of periodic table. Binding energy is the energy needed to pull a nucleon out of the nucleus, and it's measured in units like mega electron volts. This constancy explains why medium-sized nuclei are especially stable. Let's examine another property of nuclear force. Notice that at very short distances, the nuclear force becomes strongly repulsive. This means that when two nucleons like protons or neutrons get close than about 0.8 femtometers, they push each other away very strongly. This repulsion prevents the nucleus from collapsing in on itself, even though the attractive force is very strong at slight larger distance. Take a look at the graph shown here. It plots the potential energy between two nucleons as a function of their separation. For distances greater than a certain value, called R naught, the force is attractive and helps hold the nucleus together. But for separation less than R naught, the force quickly becomes repulsive, as shown by the steep increase in the potential energy. This balance between attraction and repulsion is what keeps the nucleus stable. Now let's start by looking at the concept of radioactivity. This is a key idea in nuclear physics and it helps explain how certain elements change over time. So let's define radioactivity. Radioactivity is when a nucleus breaks apart on its own, releasing particles or electromagnetic rays like gamma rays. Notice that this process happens without any outside influence. It's natural property of some nuclei. This phenomenon was first discovered by Henry Becquerel in 1896. He noticed that uranium salts could expose photographic plates even without sunlight. This discovery opened the door to our understanding of nuclear physics. It's important to realize that radioactive decay is both statistical and spontaneous. That means we can't predict exactly when a particular nucleus will decay. It's a random process. However, for a large group of nuclei, we can predict how many will decay over a certain time. Another key point is that radioactivity is not affected by external conditions like temperature, pressure, or chemical state. Whether you heat it up, cool it down, or mix it with other chemicals, the rate of decay stays the same. This shows that radioactivity is a property of the nucleus itself. There are three types of radioactive decay processes: alpha decay, beta decay, and gamma decay. First type is alpha decay. In this process, the nucleus emits an alpha particle which is made up of two protons and two neutrons, the same as a helium nucleus. The second type is beta decay. Here, a neutron in the nucleus changes into proton or vice versa and emits a beta particle which is either an electron or a positron. The third type is gamma decay. In this case, the nucleus releases energy in the form of gamma rays, which are high energy electromagnetic waves. Now we will understand the concept of alpha decay in detail. Alpha decay is a type of nuclear reactions, and by the end of this lesson, you will know what it is, how it works, and why it's important in physics. Here you can see an illustration of alpha decay, specifically as it occurs in uranium. Notice how the uranium nucleus emits a small particle. This process is a key example of how unstable nuclei can change into more stable forms by releasing particles. Alpha decay is when a nucleus breaks apart by emitting an alpha particle. An alpha particle is actually a helium nucleus, which means it has two protons and two neutrons, giving it a charge of +2. This emission changes the original nucleus into a different element. Let's look at general reaction for alpha decay. We write it as nucleus X with mass number A and atomic number Z changes into a new nucleus Y with mass number A -4 and atomic number Z -2 plus an alpha particle which is a helium nucleus. This shows that the basic pattern for any alpha decay process. In this reaction, X is called the parent nucleus, which is the original atom before decay. Y is the daughter nucleus, which is the new atom formed after alpha particle is emitted. It's important to keep track of which is which when analyzing nuclear reactions. Notice that atomic number Z decreases by 2 during alpha decay. This means the element moves 2 places lower on the periodic table, changing its chemical identity. For example, uranium becomes thorium after emitting an alpha particle. Also, the mass number A decreases by 4. This is because the alpha particle carries away 2 protons and 2 neutrons, which together have a mass of 4. So the daughter nucleus is lighter than the parent nucleus by 4 units. For example, uranium with mass number 238 and atomic number 92 changes into thorium with mass number 234 and atomic number 90 plus an alpha particle, that is helium nucleus. Next, let's talk about the energy released during alpha decay, which is called the Q value. The Q value is the amount of energy produced when parent nucleus breaks apart into daughter nucleus and the alpha particle. It's calculated based on the difference in mass between the starting nucleus and the products, and then converting that mass difference into energy. Here the formula for the Q value, Q equal to mx minus my plus mhe times c squared. In this equation, mx is the mass of the parent nucleus, my is the mass of the daughter nucleus, and mh is the mass of the alpha particle. The c squared stands for speed of light squared, which comes from the Einstein famous equation E equal to delta m times c squared. Remember, all masses should be in kilograms and the energy will come out in joules. For example, if mass difference is 0.001 atomic mass units, the energy released would be about 1.5 times 10 to the power minus 13 joules. For alpha decay to happen on its own, the Q value must be positive. This means the process releases energy, making it spontaneous. The energy released is shared as kinetic energy between the daughter nucleus and the alpha particle. So, the bigger the Q value, the more energetic the particles will be after the decay. Now let's understand the concept of beta decay. Beta decay is a type of nuclear process, and by the end of this lesson, you will know what happens inside the nucleus during this event. Let's focus on beta decay itself. Beta decay is a process where an unstable nucleus changes by emitting a particle. In beta decay, the nucleus emits either an electron, which we called a beta minus particle, or a positron, which we call beta plus particle. Take a look at the image. This shows the emission of a beta particle from the nucleus. Notice how the nucleus changes as a result of the emission. So you can see a carbon 14 nucleus after emitting electron, that is beta minus particle, it is converting into nitrogen 14. Okay, so mass number, initially the mass number in the carbon is 14, and after decay the mass number of electron and nitrogen collectively is 14. So mass number is conserved, and atomic number initially was, for carbon it is 6, and atomic number of nitrogen is 7. Okay, and one electron, that is beta minus particle, is emitted from the nucleus. So 7 minus 1, 6 on the right side also. Neutron inside the nucleus converts into a proton, emitting an electron and an antineutrino. Okay, so reaction is given. Neutron is converting into proton and electron and also an antineutrino. That is represented by nu bar. Let's talk about the antineutrino. It's a fundamental particle just like the electron, but it has no electric charge and a very tiny mass. It belongs to a group of particles called leptons and has a spin of 1/2. The antineutrino is important because it helps conserve energy and momentum in beta decay. Notice the diagram on the slide. This shows a nucleus undergoing beta decay. In this process, a neutron inside the nucleus changes into a proton and an electron is emitted. This emitted electron is called a beta particle. Keep in mind that this is one way that unstable nuclei can transform into more stable form. Here is a general reaction for beta decay. We write it as AZX changes to AZ plus 1Y plus an electron and an antineutrino. In this formula, A is the mass number, which is total number of protons and neutrons. Z is atomic number, which is number of protons. The electron is written as E negative, and antineutrino is a very light neutral particle. Notice that mass number A stays the same, but the atomic number Z increases by 1. So let's focus on what changes during the beta decay. The mass number A does not change, so the total number of beta particles in the nucleus stays the same. However, the atomic number Z increases by 1, meaning the nucleus now has one more proton and one less neutron. This change turns the atom into a different element, since the number of protons determine the element's identity. Example, phosphorus with mass number 32 and atomic number 15 changes into sulfur with mass number 32 and atomic number 16 plus a beta particle, which is electron. And an antineutrino is also released. Now we'll understand positron emission, which is a type of nuclear process. We will see how certain particles inside the nucleus can change and what that means for the atom. Now let's focus on beta plus decay, also called beta positive decay. This is a process where sometime something interesting happens inside the nucleus of an atom. Here we see the positron, which is a key player in beta plus decay. A positron is just like an electron in terms of mass, but it has a positive charge instead of a negative one. Notice the image showing positron emission. This helps us visualize how the positron releases from the nucleus during this process. In beta plus decay, a proton inside the nucleus changes into a neutron. When this happens, the atom emits a positron and a neutrino. The reaction can be written as proton leads to neutron plus positron plus neutrino. The positron is the positively charged particle and the neutrino is very light neutral particle. This process helps us the nucleus become more stable if it has too many protons. Let's talk about neutrino. This is a tiny neutral particle with almost no mass and no electric charge. It belongs to a group of particles called leptons and has a spin of 1/2. Neutrinos interact very weakly with other metal, which makes them hard to detect, but they play an important role in balancing energy and momentum during beta plus decay. Now let's talk about general reaction for beta plus decay. It can be written as AZX leads to AZ-1Y plus positron plus neutrino. Here A is the mass number, which tells us total number of protons and neutrons. Z is atomic number, which is number of protons. E positive stands for positron and nu is a neutrino, a very light neutral particle that's also released. Notice how in this reaction mass number A stays the same, but the atomic number Z decreases by 1. This means the element changes to different one with one less proton. Example, sodium 22 undergoes beta plus decay and turns into neon 22 by emitting a positron and neutrino. Sodium has 11 protons and neon has 10 protons. So atomic number is decreases by 1. Now let's see the concept of gamma decay. Gamma decay is a process that happens in atomic nuclei and it's important for understanding how unstable nuclei release excess energy. Let's start by introducing gamma decay. So gamma decay occurs when a nucleus is in an excited state, which often happens after it has already undergone alpha or beta decay. The nucleus gets rid of this extra energy by emitting a high energy photon, which we call a gamma ray. Gamma rays are a form of electromagnetic radiation, just like X-rays, but with even higher energy. Notice the diagram here, which shows the nucleus emitting a gamma ray as it moves to a lower energy state. Now let's look at the process in more detail. After an alpha or beta decay, the daughter nucleus is often left in an excited energy state. This means it has more energy than it needs to be stable. The nucleus will want to get rid of this extra energy, and that's where gamma decay comes in. At this stage, the excited nucleus de-excites to its ground state. This simply means the nucleus releases its excess energy and returns to its most stable, lowest energy configuration. The energy is released as a gamma ray, which is a photon with very high energy. A general reaction is given as nucleus X with mass number A and atomic number Z in its excited state converts into stable form having lower energy by emitting high energy gamma rays. Star sign represents excited state. Gamma rays are part of electromagnetic spectrum just like visible light, but they have much higher energy, typically in the range of millions of electron volts or mega electron volts. Their wavelengths are extremely short, much shorter than X-rays. This high energy is what makes gamma rays so penetrating and potentially dangerous. Finally, it's important to remember that in gamma decay, the atomic number Z and the mass number A of the nucleus do not change, only the energy state of the nucleus changes. This means that element stays the same, but the nucleus becomes more stable. Let's summarize the topics that we have studied today. Let's start by looking at how mass and energy are related in nuclear physics. One atomic mass unit, or AMU, is a standard unit for measuring atomic and nuclear masses. According to Einstein's famous equation E equal to mc square, we can convert mass into energy. Nuclear force is the strongest fundamental force in nature, and it's what holds the proton and neutrons, collectively called nucleons, together inside the nucleus. Without this force, the positively charged protons would repel each other and the nucleus would fall apart. Nuclear forces is short-ranged, meaning it only acts over distances of a few femtometers, about the size of a nucleus. It's also charge independent, so it acts the same way between the proton, two protons, two neutrons, and or a proton and a neutron. Finally, it shows saturation, which means each nucleon only interacts strongly with its immediate neighbors, not with all nucleons in the nucleus. Another key point is that the nuclear force actually becomes repulsive at very short distances, less than about 0.8 femtometers. This repulsion prevents nucleons from collapsing into each other. Radioactivity is the phenomenon when an unstable nucleus spontaneously decays into a more stable form, releasing particles or energy in the process. Importantly, radioactivity is not affected by external factors like temperature, pressure, or chemical state. Let's look at alpha decay. In this process, a nucleus emits an alpha particle, which is same as the helium nucleus, made up of two protons and two neutrons. This means the mass number of the original atom goes down by 4 and the atomic number drops by 2. Let's talk about beta minus decay. Here a neutron in the nucleus changes into a proton and emits an electron, which we call a beta particle. This increases the atomic number by 1, but the mass number stays the same. Next is beta plus decay, which is also called positron emission. In this case, a proton in the nucleus turns into a neutron and releases a positron, which is like a positive electron. This process decreases the atomic number by 1, while the mass number remains unchanged. Finally, let's look at gamma decay. This type of decay happens when a nucleus releases excess energy as gamma photon, which is a very high energy form of light. Importantly, gamma decay does not change the atomic number or mass number of the nucleus. Let's see some practice questions based on what we have discussed today. In the gamma decay equation, X Az star converting into X Az plus gamma, which means the X nucleus, which is in excited state, is converting into stable state by emitting a gamma radiation. What does the asterisk, that star sign, represents? Now let's move on to beta decay. Here we have a phosphorus nucleus written as 32 over 15p, and it's transforming into something else, plus an electron and an antineutrino. Our task is to figure out what the missing nucleus is. Next, let's consider what happens to the mass number, which is A, during gamma decay. Gamma decay is unique because the nucleus only loses energy by emitting a gamma photon, but the number of protons and neutrons stays the same. If a nucleus has a mass number of 238 and it emits an alpha particle, what happens to its mass number? Remember, an alpha particle is made up of two protons and two neutrons, so its mass number is 4. That means the daughter nucleus will have a different mass number. Finally, let's apply the same idea to the nucleus with mass number 234. If it emits an alpha particle, what will be the mass number of the daughter nucleus? So this is all about today's lecture. I hope you understood it well. Thank you for your attention.